On today's episode, we will have an interview with Alice Loweecey, who writes the Julia Falcone and Frank Driscoll mystery series. Welcome. Welcome back to our full review show. We have had a busy beginning of fall so far. And what have you guys been up to?
Well, I had my wedding anniversary this week.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, I haven't killed him yet.
When you do, write a book about it.
So I will, definitely. It'll be a real thriller.
Well, my husband often says if anything ever happens to him, you better look into it because she knows a lot about this stuff.
That's why I watch all those true crime shows, so looking for the perfect way. I'm just kidding.
There are a lot of unsolved mysteries out there still, so there are the perfect crime is out there, apparently.
So what did you do, Kathy?
I have had a dog. Her name is Dakota, and she is really a lovely dog, but she has to go back.
Oh.
Unfortunately. Yeah, she and my husband don't quite get along, and she kind of bit the neighbor.
Your husband.
Well, she bit the neighbor.
Paul bit your neighbor? Maybe Paul.
That's a whole different story. Unfortunately, this dog didn't work out.
To clarify things, she only had this dog on a trial basis.
Yes.
She's a rescue, and I'm going to keep trying to rescue. This is not the end of our dog story.
And what I've been up to is we attended our regular book club that we're a member of. We discussed Colors of the Flower Moon. It's a true crime
by David Grant.
It was amazing. And we probably had one of the most in-depth, intense conversations that we've had in years. I really enjoyed it.
We have about 8, I think there were close to about 18 people there.
Not everybody was on board. Some of our members like a more cozy type mystery, so this was not their cup of tea. For the most part, we even had one person say at the end that they're going to go back and read it because after our discussion,
she couldn't get through it the first time. She hadn't
so she's going to give it a good try again. That was great.
And I found the book excellent. I highly recommend it.
Back to why we're here. On today's episode, we have a great interview with Alice Loweecey, who writes the Julia Falcone and Frank Driscoll mystery series.
Alice is the baker of brownies and tormentor of characters. Alice Loweecey celebrates the day she jumped the wall with as much enthusiasm as her birthday. She grew up watching Hammer horror films and Scooby-Doo mysteries, which explains a whole lot. When she's not creating trouble for her sleuth Julia Driscoll or inspiring nightmares as her alter ego Kate Morgan, she can be found growing vegetables in her garden and water lilies in her koi pond.
She doesn't clarify for those who don't know when she says jump the wall. She was a nun and she jumped the wall and left the convent. That's what she means by that.
And what
phrase.
She means by her alter ego, Kate Morgan, she writes horror books under the name Kate Morgan.
So check those out too.
She'll go into that during the interview. I hope you enjoy this. Here you go.
We would like to welcome Alice Loweecey, the author of the Driscoll and Falcone mystery series, to our show. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you.
Hi, Alice.
First of all, we'd like to let you know that we thoroughly enjoyed Force of Habit, so we'll get to the questions. Julia obviously had a lot of experience as a nun. Will there be any prequel that goes into more depth about her life during her convent life?
There isn't a prequel. The book after this, which is called Back in the Habit, I forced the poor woman back into her old convent undercover as a nun.
Oh, great.
Yes, I've started to read that one, but I haven't got very far yet.
And she meets all these people that she really never ever wanted to meet again. People that hated her guts, and it was mutual. Really, none of this at all whatsoever is based on my own life in the convent, and I'm lying. Yes, I got literary revenge on a few nuns I'd like to punch, but can't because I'm old and they're old and we don't live near each other.
Well, Julia and Frank Driscoll obviously get together eventually, even though he acts like such a bore in the first book. Was there a Frank Driscoll in your life? And was it that romantic?
There was no Frank Driscoll in my life, but I swear it was romantic. When I got out of the convent a few years after, I joined a local repertory theater company. Are you familiar with the term repertory?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. It's the same group of people doing a whole bunch of different shows, different characters over time. So, and I met him there. I was doing one show and he was doing another show, and we talked, and then we ended up doing the same show. On the first date, he asked me to his cast party for his first show. And because, we all helped each other, and the theater, a tiny little theater in the round, was in a bottom of a little valley in a clambake grove, and it poured that day. So there I was, all dressed up for a date, and of course all of us who were in the company spent intermission with those big brushes sweeping water. And then a couple weeks later, he drove up to Lake Placid, New York, which in the summer, God knows what they do in the summer, but they do summer stuff.
Yeah.
He left that group, came back, asked me out on a date, and proposed.
Wow.
Wow.
Very
That's awesome.
That is very romantic.
And I accepted, and we'll be married 31 years in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Congratulations.
It was very romantic. It was so sudden. People, when I showed my ring, people said, "Are you seeing someone?"
So back to your books, do you begin with the title of the book, or do you plan out the storyline before naming your books?
In general, I plan out the storyline. I'm up to I'm with another publisher now, so I think I'm on book 9. And I have a whole list of nun puns because the new series are all nun, like None But the Brave,
Oh.
So I do have a whole list of nun puns, and after I am a massive outliner. My outlines run 5,000 to 10,000 words.
Oh, wow.
And once I get the whole outline written, then I look at it and I try to fit. It helps my brain to write if I have a title in my head. And they change. At least I have a working title. It's how I like to do it. Yeah, when I started writing mysteries, I realized I would have to plant clues and then remember where I planted clues. And my very first book, I pantsed, which is writing with no outline. And it was not fun. And I am very anal retentive. And also I work full time. So when I write, I come home at night and I write on the weekends. So I had to be able to pick up where I left off. And that's where I learned how to outline. And I have never looked back.
Wow.
We were at the National Book Festival last weekend, and we listened to Jeffrey Deaver, that he said that's the way to go. You have to have an outline.
I know writers who say, Jane Yolen, are you familiar with this? She's written a gazillion books, young adult and picture books. I read her when I was a child, and now I'm friends with her on Facebook. It's awesome. I'm fangirl. She insists that writing an outline spoils the ending for her and it ruins the book. So
wow.
To me, my outlines change constantly. My characters just point and laugh at my outline, and I have to catch up with the book.
Do you write every day?
I try to. Some days work is long and stressful and overtime, and I just come home and drool on the couch.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what that's like. Who inspired you to begin writing mysteries? We'll start with that question and get to the second part after you answer that.
I belong to a very large writers group called Absolute Right, and it's got thousands and thousands of members, and I've been there for years. They saved my butt when I almost went with Publish America. That's another story. And they used to have agents come on and agree to read queries. So the very first book I ever finished was a horror story. So I said, here, read my query. And part of my query was that I used to be a nun, because it's eye-catching. It's also eye-catching. And he rejected that horror book, but he said, you know what I'd really like? I'd like to see a crime-fighting nun. And I was like, fine, I write horror. And 9 months later, I had this book about the crime-fighting nun. And I submitted it to him, and he rejected it.
Oh, you're kidding.
Because the book, it's a dark book, but trust me, he's no longer an agent, but he liked stuff that was a lot dark. So it was just not a book for him. But that's how I started writing mysteries, and Force of Habit turned out to be the first book that I got published.
The one thing I enjoyed about the book was that it started off kind of not a fluff piece. It didn't have a lot of meat and potatoes, but man, towards the end, it had a lot of meat and potatoes.
I would like to point out that ending was cut and rewritten because it was a little too extreme for the publisher.
Oh, really?
I thought of myself at the time as a horror writer, so I skewed that way.
Yeah, okay.
I'm making hand gestures and you can't see them. I talk with my hands all the time. So yeah, it's a dark book. The new series for the other publisher is much lighter. They like lighter and fluffier. So I had to train myself right all the
That
time.
explains the lot.
We like the more meat and potatoes.
Grizzly,
Yeah.
That was a great ending.
Well, thank you.
And then what keeps you writing through writer's block? As we know, every writer suffers.
Everyone gets it. I am a research fiend. I will dive down the research hole and you have to drag me out 2 days later, unwashed and hungry. So whenever I really am not feeling creative, I either switch from writing on keyboard to writing by hand. I am a big fountain pen person. I have a collection. I love them. Where I am right now, I'm looking out onto my backyard and we have a very large koi pond with a waterfall. And I will sit out there and write by hand and do that. If switching up the medium does not work, I will simply go into more research. So all this extra stuff coming that I need to know. So I do that, and then generally I'll spend, sometimes it's a couple days, the words just aren't coming. I will have all this research, and then I'll just take a breath and go back and say, oh, okay, this is where I have to go now.
Yeah.
Also, what I have found over the years, I've been running a long time, is that one way to prevent writer's block, nothing is sure and certain to prevent it. Never end your days writing at the end of a chapter. Ever. Because
interesting.
Like, well, I'm done. Now what do? I at least put 2 or 3 lines into the next chapter so I feel like there's a continuance. Ending a chapter
to keep going. How difficult was it to get your first book published?
Well, you went into that briefly.
Sort of went into it a little bit.
385 queries.
Oh, wow.
I know people who got into the 400 and 500, so I'm certainly not the biggest number there. It just took a long time. People weren't into that style. That wasn't the right kind of mystery. And it's all about the right character and the right book for the right publisher. It really is.
Right.
That's how my first thing. My first publisher was looking for a female sleuth. They happened to like my female sleuth, and I wrote a decent book. So that's how it worked. It was a long time, and I ended up with a bad agent who decided after a year or so that she was tired of this, and her husband was ill, so she was just going to quit. And she just left 29 of us high and dry.
Oh, wow.
And I did what you're not supposed to do. I had a good friend who had the complete paid-for subscription to Publishers Marketplace. And I got her to get me the phone numbers of the 6 places that currently the agent said had my book. None of them did.
Oh,
my goodness.
I fortunately got some wonderful secretaries who were incredibly sympathetic. So, yeah, that was a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to reboot, and I ended up finding another agent who sold this book.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
A friend of mine got an agent on her first query. So,
I guess it's luck of the draw.
What advice can you give to authors just starting out, other than persistence?
The advice I always give to authors, and I have been asked this for years, treat it like a business. Unless you're just writing for your friends and family, or you're writing a diary, or you're noodling around. And I noodled for years, especially when my kids were little. I mean, I had no brain power and no time to write a real book because kids take a lot of work.
Right.
Treat it like a business. Set yourself a schedule. Learn the craft. Read books about the craft. I don't recommend going to conferences early on because they're pricey. Mm-hmm. But there's so much available online that treat it as though, you want this to be your job forever. It's not my job forever. I still work full time because health insurance.
Right.
Indeed.
And paying the electric bill and eating, those things.
Minor details.
This is work, and treat it seriously. I mean, I have a lot of fun writing, but I treat it like it's a business.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Very good advice.
All right. Well, now for fun. If you could have your very own book club and invite anyone you wish in it, who would you invite to join and why?
Do you mean other writers?
Live or dead?
Live or dead.
Writers, maybe characters, anyone.
Oh my gosh. Well, my first thing, now I was a horror writer first.
Right.
And I love H.P. Lovecraft, but he was a bigoted git.
Yes, he was.
Still, I have reread all of his stories multiple times, and there's a couple that still make me shiver. So, and he had the knack. So, yes, I swear I would invite H.P. Lovecraft and then I'd lecture him.
Change his way of thinking.
At this point in my life, I have so very many good friends who are well-known, much more well-known than I am, writers, and we don't see each other often enough. My friend Jennifer Hillier.
Oh, okay, yes.
Mm-hmm. Her Jar of Hearts. If you like gritty, you need to read Jar of Hearts. Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. And she is the sweetest, most prettiest, wonderful person. You'd never think. She's got these chubby cheeks, and her adorable. And we've known each other for years when we were both completely unpublished and starting out. And I would invite her because I don't see her often enough.
Okay. Good reason.
She is so much fun to be around. Hank Philippi Ryan.
She was at the book fest. We sat in on her talk.
Yeah, she's a doll. She is, and she is, every so often you run into a writer who's like, I was never unpublished. I don't know you people. Very, very seldom. Hank is won every award in the book. And I got to know her when she wanted volunteers for an anthology on the process of writing. And I was like, sure, all right. And that